Hello again. I've said before that I don't really feel able to criticise either Boris Johnson or anybody else living or working at number 10 Downing Street for ignoring the various rules relating to people socialising during the COVID pandemic. Many people were taking no notice of those regulations and behaving as they saw fit, making their own judgment as to what might or might not have constituted a threat to their health or the health of their families or friends. This is certainly what I did myself, and I'm sure that many people watching this did the same thing. I might mention that I'm old, and as many people have noticed and remarked in the comments here, my lungs seem to be shot to pieces. Which puts me, of course, into a very vulnerable category. Not only that, I have family members whom I see, and I wouldn't like them to fall ill with a serious respiratory illness. Nevertheless, I made what seemed to me to be sensible decisions about what I believed to be happening, and decided that the situation wasn't really all that different from other waves of respiratory diseases caused by various viruses which are seen in Britain every 10 or 15 years. I may, of course, have been quite wrong about this, but that was how I saw the case, and I didn't think that any extra precautions were needed on my part. As I say, I may well have been wrong about this, but what is now coming to light is that the people living in 10 Downing Street and working there obviously felt the same way about the pandemic as I did. That means from the Prime Minister to the Director of Strategy of the COVID task force to all the civil servants and everybody else really in Downing Street. Forget what they were saying in public. Confucius says in the Analects that when he was young he heard what people said and then trusted them to act accordingly. But as he grew older, he both listened to what they said and also observed their actions. In this case, the people in Downing Street, including the Director General of the Cabinet Office COVID Task Force, were saying some terrifying things about COVID and devising all kinds of regulations and laws to limit its spread. But observing their actions tells us that they clearly did not believe a word of what they were saying. They were attending office parties, drinking together, socialising with lots of different people and then going home to their families. I'm sure that many of those people, at the dozen or so parties of which we have so far heard, have children and elderly relatives, and I can't believe they were all completely stupid and utterly careless about the welfare of their families and friends. The alternative explanation for their conduct is that they didn't really think that there was any risk in holding parties and socialising as normal, that despite all the things which they were saying, they knew that carrying on like that didn't really put any lives at risk. In short, I can see two possible explanations for what happened, and this is what they call a fast-moving situation because more and more is coming out each day now, almost by the hour. As I say, I can think of two possible explanations. On the one hand, all those people honestly believed that the laws which they were drafting and the ferocious restrictions on people's going to church, visiting shops and having relatives round for Christmas lunch were vitally necessary, and that office parties represented a deadly hazard and had to be prevented by law to save many lives. That's one possibility. In that case, the parties being held at number 10 Downing Street were criminally negligent and suggests that none of those taking part cared in the slightest for the lives of their family and friends, which seems unlikely. The second possibility is that they carried on in that way because they knew that there was no danger and that the regulation could safely be disregarded and that this wasn't likely to cause harm to their children and elderly relatives at all. My own guess is that those people care as much about their families as I do about mine, and would not do anything which might put their lives in danger, and that they held parties and other social events because they knew that their public pronouncements were wildly exaggerated, and that the laws which they had themselves framed were pointless. I'm not expressing a view myself about the lockdowns and the amendments of the 1984 Public Health Act, which brought about the greatest restriction on our liberties since the end of the Second World War. For all I know to the contrary, these actions may well have been necessary and wise, but it looks to me as though those who devised and enforced them did not think that they were important at all. If this was the case, then what on earth were they up to? There seem to be new revelations about this every day now, and each new story points in the same direction, that people in Downing Street had the attitude that none of the COVID regulations mattered in the least. It is worth remembering that when ordinary people said that they were dubious about the value of the measures being taken, they were denounced as conspiracy theorists and nutcases by the very people who were behaving in this way at the heart of government. If much more comes to light in this way, then I think that a lot of people will be asking themselves what has really been going on for the past couple of years, and what on earth were all those government officials and civil servants up to?